From the KELOLAND Digital Desk, I'm meteorologist Scott Mundt. This is Weather or Not for Friday, February 20th. Oh, it's a cold start. And you know what? This cold air will stick around as we do go through this weekend. Temperatures, a lot of us probably below average. When Sunday gets here, maybe only single-digit highs in northeastern South Dakota, thanks in part to that recent snowpack. And, of course, we know the cold air coming in from the north. So we do have cold air that's in place. Along with that cold, we've had flurries and snow showers where earlier this morning before sunrise, the visibility was down to 3 miles. I think that report came in 5 o'clock this morning in and around the Sioux Falls area. Things will improve. A lot of the flurries, snow showers will eventually go away as we get into the afternoon. We'll try to bring in a decrease in cloud cover from west to east. But even with sunshine, temperatures will remain cold. Here's Futurecast for tomorrow. Here's a good example. We'll go partly cloudy, expect some sunshine, but temperatures remaining cold. Notice those wind arrows. The winds continue to come in from the northwest, and we'll go into Sunday and more or less the same thing. You know, there could be a reinforcing shot of cold air, more of a northerly wind on Sunday, but I should mention, too, that temperatures Sunday morning, probably in the single digits, much like what we had this morning. But the wind chill can fall to the minus single digits and the minus teens on Sunday morning. And during the day, just another cold day, temperatures below average, but that will change as we get into early next week. I think numbers will slowly start to warm. By Monday, we'll get more of a southerly wind for Monday and probably see some of those wind gusts into that 20-mile-per-hour range. Here's a look at what's going on with our wind gusts for today. Still coming in from the northwest. They won't be as strong during the day as compared to what we had earlier this morning. We could still have some wind gusts into that 20-mile-per-hour range. You notice how those numbers are showing up mainly in Minnesota. Later this evening, we'll go with light winds, and that's a look at 9 o'clock. More or less the same thing, looking at light wind speeds during the evening hours. Check out the numbers today. Only in the teens for highs in north central and northeastern South Dakota. 20s for just about everybody else. The 20% chance you see for snow showers, a lot of that probably during the morning hours. By the afternoon, we'll see what we can do about bringing in some sunshine from the west. Tonight will be a cold night, single digits for many. Otherwise, numbers close to, say, 10 or 12 degrees for overnight lows. And tomorrow, we'll have temperatures in the teens and 20s, north central, northeastern KELOLAND. Even though we have a high of 30 going in Sioux Falls, that's still around 3-4 degrees below average. Northwest winds in eastern KELOLAND, 10, 15 miles per hour. May have a couple of wind gusts into that 20-mile-per-hour range. So coming up on today's show, is February giving us any signs of what to expect with snow in March and or April? I quickly put together a couple of stats to try to illustrate that with what's been going on in February and what happened for March and April, the following 2 months. We'll look at the extended forecast and, of course, the pattern. Those are interchangeable, but we'll also be joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens. Stay with us. There's plenty to talk about in this latest edition of Weather or Not. Welcome back to Weather or Not. I'm being joined by meteorologist Brian Karstens now. And Brian, we were talking a little bit during the break on what I put together earlier this morning with looking at what we may see for snow. I'm just going to try to adjust your camera so we look, there we go. So we look fairly close. I love
how you do that.
What we may see for snow in March and April. And I'm just basing this on our warm temperatures we've had in February.
So you're looking for some pattern recognition or just looking at some interesting parallels.
Yeah. Do we have to pay a price for such a warm February? In years, yes, we have. Okay. We'll just we'll leave it at that. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. First, I do want to start with February itself. We've talked about this many times. only 4 days of 70-degree temperatures in the 132 years of record keeping. Now, March itself, it averages around a day of seeing those temperatures of at least 70 degrees. I think the average high at the end of the month is in the middle 50s. I think on the 25th, it's 50 degrees for an average high temperature. So, I guess it shouldn't be too surprising to average at least one day. Okay, and we know about Marches. We know about the 70-degree weather we've had before in March, so we'll have to see what happens with this. There you go. That's probably a better look at the camera.
And dry environments obviously aid that. And so when you come off a lot of momentum out of February, you kind of think to yourself, well, there's probably more evidence to support when we do warm up, we're going to be even warmer in the month of March. And so we've already barked about some 70s. I think that's a very logical conclusion based on what we know about the patterns that are emerging for early March. Beyond that, the jury's still out. But again, kind of go through these numbers because it is interesting just to see how different years panned out.
Yeah, just try to stick with me here. So far, the average temperature, when you look at the high and you look at the low, the average temperature for the month is 34.9. And I think that right now, if we were to stop the month of February, right now, as I look at my notes, I think that ends up being second warmest. The warmest was 2024, 35.7. Okay, and 2024 is the first one on the list there.
Okay.
And the following March, we had 3 inches of snow. April, 0.3 of an inch. So not much snowfall out of that year. But what I have here is the top 10 for warmest Februarys. Now, again, our number will change. We're cold today, cold through the weekend. We'll warm in the next week. So, we'll see where we end up. But if we were to stop the month right now, and this is just to give us an idea of what, may happen for snow in March and April. It's just an interesting list to put together. We're always thinking of things like this anyway. What's the pattern? What can it tell us about the future? And I wanted to bring this up to say, well, do we have to pay a price for such warm weather in February? Some years we have. 1998, that one stands out. And you were quick to say, hey, that was an El Nino year.
Yeah, that was a big blockbuster pattern in 98 because that's what started off, the conversations about in March of 98, you had the Comfrey St. Peter tornado. That was probably part of some of those systems that were cruising through the plains, those big, large, low-pressure structures. So, yeah, you ended up a lot of snow. But a lot of those Marches, most of them aren't too bad. There are a couple in there that are a little bit snowy, but a lot of times March snow comes and goes, too, quickly.
Quickly looking at those 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 are below 5 inches.
Yeah.
For the whole month.
Yeah, I don't consider that to be all that much. In April, too, it shows up in there, some of them. There's one, 1935. I don't quite recall how that year, although 35, generally speaking, was a lot better than, obviously, 36. Which has huge records in it, both from February and July of 36. But, yeah, you've got some variability in there. 1921, too, that was a year that we actually tied some of these records lately.
With the heat that we've had in February.
Yeah, I know 21 was in there. So that year, it ended up being, 4.5 inches of snow in March? And then we had nothing in April.
Yeah. I do want to mention that 1998, I have it written down, 9.3 inches of snow fell on the last of March, March 31st. Out of that 21.4, over 9 inches fell on the last day of the month.
Yeah, and typical fashion, I'm sure, big system that cruised through with a lot of wind. That's par for the course when we get those March old-fashioned storms. So, we can still get some snow. I'm sure we will have something yet to track. But, an interesting comparison there.
And this is a different list, too. This is looking at just the high temperature. I just showed you the average temperature for the month. This is looking at just the high temperature. It's 48. I think it was around 56, 57 is the warmest. We're just looking at the high temperature in February. So if we were to stop the month right now, we'd be at the 14th warmest. And I did the 5 years prior to the 14th warmest, 5 years after 14th warmest. And this is what I came up with looking at, again, March and April for snowfall. Well, lo and behold, 1998, right in the middle, that shows up again. But we do have some other years in here. And as you look at April, snowfall amounts, very little, 2 inches or less in April, more of a variance there in March, anywhere from just shy of an inch in 1990 to over 20 in 1998. So we do have some years that do overlap, 1954, 98, and 2017. There again is a look at what happened in March and in April. So if you're looking at those years that overlap, there might be a price to pay for the warm temperatures we've had in February. But when we look at the El Nino conditions, the southern oscillation, the closest year that I can find out of both lists came up in 2024 for what's currently going on. Not the forecast of El Nino or La Nina, but what is currently going on. And March snow, 3 inches, 3/10 of an inch in April. So something that's, we always like to look for these little stats, if you will, on, what the future may hold. And we'll see if we get that March snow or not. If I were to pick one here, just go with that El Nino pattern of what it was showing us in 2024 to what it's showing us right now. That's the closest one that I can find. And we'll see if we get less than the climate average for snow in March. In 24, it was 3 inches. I think the climate average is around 7. I have it written down somewhere.
Yeah, it always used to be that March was the snowiest month.
Now I think it's the third snowiest behind December and February.
Yeah, that's an interesting stat, too, that I always think catches people off guard a little bit because you think of exiting the winter, and that's usually when you think of the biggest snowstorms. But now those things have changed a little bit in the math. And obviously, we'll see what this extended forecast brings. But I have a hunch, Scott, we're not going to add a whole bunch of snow in the forecast.
No,
at least not for now.
I'll keep those lists as well. I'll keep them, somewhere in the
stashed
storm
away.
center. I'll keep them stashed away, and we'll see how close we actually get to maybe some of those years. Stay with us. We'll talk about the extended and the weather pattern coming up as we continue on Whether or Not. Welcome back to Whether or Not. Brian, we're always, obviously looking ahead. We'll talk about the extended forecast and the weather pattern ahead too, but I don't want to say what you see is what you get because we're in a cold spell right now. Temperatures below average.
Colder than normal. Yeah, It's interesting to say that. And our forecast for the weekend is obviously in that stretch. We've got early next week, though, to warm back up. We're going to get another change to the snow cover map. You can see how the starting point is, though, with the snow from yesterday in central Nebraska and taking that U shape, just like what we thought there, and bypassing most of KELOLAND. The Southwest picking up snow yesterday, but this is the older snow cover on the ground north of the Twin Cities, and I think that it's safe to say even for them, time is ticking. We're getting to the last few days of February. Things are going to start to move a little bit. The extended forecast, by and large here, once we kind of bleed off this colder air that will have some depth to it. I mean, it's even showing departures from normal all the way to the Gulf Coast region and into Florida. But see this, boy, we talk about a switcheroo. I mean, we're talking about replacement air from the Pacific. This is definitely going to have a major impact on temperature forecast next week, setting our numbers well above normal. It's just a matter of how warm it is. And also, Scott, how we got a disturbance in here for Wednesday of next week that could play, maybe a little bit of a role in here, but there's no shortage of more mild weather. So we're just going to pick this trend back up again that we just went through. And, there's another day. You mentioned here this morning, what do we do with Friday? A week out and then into Saturday? Maybe there's another chance at 60.
we already have one model suggesting that we could have a temperature at, well, you're looking at the map here, February 28th, where we can have, 60-degree weather the day before, maybe even going into the 28th, especially if the cold air, slows down and it gets delayed. So if we do get that 60, one more day of 60-degree heat, that will be the most 60s in February for Sioux Falls ever recorded. We're sitting at 5. We have 2 other years that have had 5. So if we get one more day, and I think we can, we should be able to squeeze that out, considering we missed a lot of the snow, a little bit of rain this month. We have very dry ground, and we know that. So it's real easy to heat that dry ground. That 60, I think, is on the table again by the time we finish the month.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. Plus the fact, too, that you can see the Alaska connection. So if they're colder, which it looks like parts of Alaska are going to trend that direction, this is going to amp up the heights or the ridging here across southwest Canada. And when they start to bolt back up, we're going to follow probably a similar trend line. We don't have all of it worked out on the math, but just keep watching this because, if you get the dissension of something like that, boy.
Now, that pattern is the pattern we've had throughout much of the winter when we've had these above average temperatures.
Yeah.
That Pacific air, things coming in from the northwest.
Yep. We've seen it a few times, haven't we?
We have. And when we get into, I believe it's March 6th, the European model suggesting 72.
Yeah. And to be clear about that, when it says 72 that far out, really what it's saying is even warmer than that, but it's March. So let's see where we actually land because we know a lot of things still can play out here. We're not ready to lock in on an exact scenario, but I'm just going to assume that at some point on the timeline, this is probably going to happen. We're going to regroup and see something like that spill into the plains. I'll be curious to see what the records are.
Oh, that's what I meant to check.
About that time.
I meant to check that this morning. I could do it.
Because they've got to be in the 70s, but I don't know how fast we hit like an 80-degree record high. I would think it would come up fairly quickly in the first 10 days of the month. That's my memory, just, speaking off the top of my head here.
I was working on all those numbers about the warm February and what happened with the snow. I kind of just ran out. I had the idea.
Got on the track.
I had the idea. I just, ran out of time. So that would have been, what, the 6th we're thinking?
Yeah. Throw in the 6th of March. What's the record high?
77. Let me go and bring that page up. Yeah, March 6th. Record high 77. There's a couple of 60s there at the beginning of the month. 68 on the 1st, 67 for the record high on the 4th.
Interesting. Okay. Well,
we'll see.
Maybe a pickoff. Oh, there's an 8th of March, a 69 from 2020. So.
Oh, yeah. Look at that. That's the first 80 I see.
And a 2021 and a 2025 and a 2024.
What were those numbers, those years that I talked about? 24 showed up.
We've had a lot of warmth the last few years. If you just look at that, how many years we have had 70s and 80s. If you look back at Sioux Falls the last, 10 to 20 years. Quite a number of them. Oh, in 2012, too. Well, that. Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on that year.
Those 80s right there.
Yeah, we know how that ended up. I was planting the garden on St. Patrick's Day in 2012. And did you know, by the way, that the harvest that year, of course, everybody remember, well, most of you remember, maybe not all of you, that was an extremely bad drought year. But the things that we planted, as ridiculous as that sounds, on St. Patrick's Day, that those were our best vegetables.
Oh,
because
really?
they matured so early.
Yeah.
And then when it got scorching hot, they kind of were, wrapping up or getting done. So, yeah. Had radish out of that, peas, and that kind of stuff.
Just because of the big drought, let's try not to repeat that. I'm glad you had good vegetables.
Yeah, and obviously this year has a lot of differences from 2012. I don't see any of that lining up. But what I do see, though, in that list is like 2024 again.
2024. Mm-hmm.
You just talked about that a couple minutes ago.
That 80, Yeah,
that's exactly the kind of thing that happens. You'll see this preview in February, and then look at the March version. See what it does there. That's probably what that really is. That's really probably what'll happen.
Saying 70 is on the table is not too outlandish. Just looking at some history here.
No, that's ultimately what the model
things are lining up.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why we do things like that.
Yeah, just keep watching it. I think the audience knows now. Okay, let's see what happens. I think it'll be more interesting information as we go along.
And we'll continue to talk about the extended forecast coming up. Stay with us. You're watching Weather or Not. Welcome back to Whether or Not. Brian and I were just looking at some of the longer range computer model runs. And here, I'll just bring it up. This is the one that is suggesting 72 on the last time frame of its forecast. So that's March 6th, suggesting 70. Even before then, on the 5th, 69, close enough to 70.
Mm-hmm.
So we have, things that we're looking at during the end of that first week of the month, or even during the first week of the month, depending on the timing of things, that, some of these temperatures are looking very mild.
Spring-like.
Oh, yeah. I mean, some will think we had spring-like temperatures, this week, earlier in the week.
Right. And, we're just, at this point, we'll see where we end up. But, it's an interesting trend. That is for sure to see that momentum there. This is, by the way, the data off of the ensemble of the European model. And you can see that the first few days, we've got it in this forecast, the 20s. Then we've got this big jump going into early next week by Tuesday. And then notice how the data, though, it kind of floats in this range. There's more uncertainty. Definitely have that. That's March for you. But what's the average in there? I mean, we're sitting in there a lot of the days, at least in the 40s, or very close to that for highs. And then, of course, these outliers tend to kind of stretch a little bit toward the end there, kind of see a little pull. And that's kind of what you just talked about there, Scott.
Yeah, seeing maybe that little push getting in those warmer temperatures toward the tail end of that first week of March. And I think we have enough time to bring up another one. Now, this is the Canadian ensemble run, and more or less it shows the same thing, that box and whisker graph. Here's the 80-degree mark right here. Now, we take that line over. Looks like it wants to touch 80 on the 3rd. And then again, a little bit above 80, and that is on the 4th. So again, just depending on the timing of things, it's interesting to see that, we have two models suggesting temperatures may just be off the charts, or, dare I say record territory?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just talked about the records.
We've been in record territory, so we're not
so
too surprised
why
at
would
that.
we change anything? But we do need to change things with bringing in better chances for precipitation, and that is something that we will continue to monitor, as well as watching this warm weather that will be once again on the way, but we'll have to wait until after the weekend. On that note, I hope you enjoy the weekend and have yourself a fantastic day. Thanks for watching, Whether or Not.